Johnny tomorrow. Imagine that you are coming on a journey into the future. We are going to a world millions and millions of miles away to meet Johnny, the first child to be born on another planet. We will travel far beyond Mars, glowing red in the ink-black night of space, far beyond Saturn with its mysterious spinning rings, out beyond our own solar system. We will pass by a billion stars and planets which throng the galaxy of the Milky Way before we reach Johnny's home, the planet Utopium. Today, this trip would take many thousands of years, even traveling at nearly 186,000 miles per second, which is the speed of light. But in years to come, scientists may well discover a quicker way of getting there, perhaps through the black holes in space. Let us suppose that these black holes are giant slipways to distant areas of space beyond our reach. Our spaceship has entered a black hole and taken a sudden time-space leap into another solar system, and we are speeding towards Utopium. The year is 2050 AD. What is life like for a boy who lives so far in the future, on a planet so distant from Earth? Look out from the spaceship. You can see Utopium brilliantly lit by its own sun. It is pockmarked by craters and crusted with jagged mountain ranges. We draw closer and closer and search the surface for something familiar. But there are no seas, no polar ice caps, no tropical forests or lush grasslands. We are plunging towards an alien land of dry, reddish-brown rock. Our spaceship comes to rest safely on a soft bed of powdery dust. We long to step out and explore this strange new world, but take care. On Utopium, there is no air. First, climb into your pressure suit and attach your space helmet securely. Check your air tanks to be sure you can breathe. Now you can step out. Tread carefully, for the pull of gravity is very weak. It is difficult to walk when you're almost weightless. A fall at this stage could cause a fatal tear in your spacesuit. There is Johnny's house. You can see Johnny outside with his father. He is never allowed out alone. One jump will take him right over his house. A few more could take him away over the horizon, lost from sight. Since the outside world is so dangerous, Johnny's parents have tried to make sure that he has everything he could possibly want indoors. Let's take a look inside and see how Johnny spends his day. This morning, Johnny woke early. He hung in his sleeping bag, swinging lazily to and fro in midair. "Come on, Johnny, out of that bag and into the gym," called his father. "Oh, must I?" came the muffled reply. Johnny snuggled deeper into his bag. His father started on the usual argument. "Look, Johnny, if you ever want to build up enough strength, you must exercise. Otherwise, when you visit other planets with stronger gravity, you'll be as helpless as a baby." Johnny reluctantly pulled on his friction boots. They had special soles which gripped the walls of his room. He shuffled up, over the ceiling, and into the gym. 20 minutes on his trapeze, wrestling with anti-gravity forces, soon had him wide awake. Johnny chose his favorite breakfast of butterscotch vegetable protein. He sucked it from its plastic bag while deciding what toy he would make today. A robot, perhaps, or a space shuttle? The Atomator, his toy-making machine, could make anything he liked. It was filled with billions of atoms which it put together in different ways to make different toys. "I know, I'll make a mini space buggy," he decided. First he twisted a dial and out slid a thin plastic sheet. He molded it into shape by feeding measurements into a calculator. Lastly, he slotted in a tiny power pack. In fact, it was more fun making the buggy than playing with it. He soon dropped it back into the Atomator to be broken down into atoms again.
Johnny lay back against the wall and wondered what to do next. "Pongo," he called softly. There was a snuffling noise, and then a big orange furry ball flung itself at him. It was Johnny's ongaroo, a pet specially bred for him. "Steady on, Pongo," Johnny laughed as they spun round the room. He kicked a boot off. "Fetch, Pongo." The ongaroo obediently brought it back. "Sleep, Pongo," commanded Johnny.
Pongo rolled himself back into a ball and floated to the ceiling.
Poor old Pongo. "I wish you would do something naughty just for once in your life," Johnny sighed. Johnny climbed into his sonograph to play some music. "Boom, boom, 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 boom," he started with a rattle of kettle drums. The sonograph could make any music in the universe. It could imitate all the instruments that had ever been invented. It would hum and twang and throb with strange, exciting sounds all of its own. Johnny only had to let his mind go blank and his feelings take over, and the sonograph would put his mood into music.
The sonograph played a sad, lonely little tune. Johnny pressed the record button. "I'll play that back after school."
Johnny's school was his room. He had a teacher all to himself, not a human teacher, but a computer called PAL, short for Programmed Active Learning. When school time arrived, there was a low humming sound as PAL came into action. "What do you want to study today, Johnny?" asked PAL, his electronic voice sounding as if he had a slight cold. How about a prehistory lesson?" Johnny suggested. "Prehistory it is," PAL answered. The room instantly lit up with omnisense laser beams. Above, Johnny could see a clear blue earth sky. Mountains towered in the distance. He waited impatiently. "Come on, pal. How about some dinosaurs?" "Dinosaurs coming up," Pal replied. The ground shook, and the air rang with a spine-chilling roar. A Gorgosaurus charged towards Johnny, chased by a ferocious Tyrannosaurus Rex. The Tyrannosaurus bared its teeth and snarled at Johnny. Johnny just laughed. "All right, pal, you can't scare me." Johnny knew that however real omnisense might look, sound, even taste and smell, nothing could actually hurt him. If he stretched out a hand, it would simply go through the dinosaur. In omnisense lessons like this, Johnny had visited places we learn about from pictures and maps in geography lessons. He had met the people we read about in history books. In maths lessons, he had programmed spaceships to explore the universe, and Pal had taken him on imaginary trips to distant planets. Yet Johnny longed, above all, to go on a real journey, to meet real people, especially children of his own age. Sooner than he expected, Johnny's wish was to come true. In a way, it was Pal's fault. Although Pal was extremely clever for a computer, he was no match for an inquisitive and adventurous boy. It all happened when Johnny's parents were called away on an important space conference. Johnny's father instructed Pal to take care of Johnny and on no account to let him out of the house. The evening after Johnny's parents left, Pal and Johnny were having a game of three-dimensional marbles. Pal noticed that Johnny was unusually quiet. What's the matter, Johnny?" Johnny swung round, turning his back on Pal. "I don't want to play any more. It's boring," he announced. "How about some other game, then?" Pal suggested. "Oh, they're all boring," replied Johnny. "You know why? It's because you can always win. When I win, it's only because you let me." "What do you want to do, then?" asked Pal. "Well, I'd like to go outside, explore a little, meet some real people for once." "You know that is forbidden, Johnny. I can simulate any place or person you want." "Oh, it's not the same," Johnny insisted. He climbed into the sonograph to have a long private think. Both were silent for a while. Pal flipped through his memory bank, trying to find an answer to this unusual problem. Then Johnny had an idea. "Pal, How about giving me a lesson in computer technology? Pal, who was instructed to teach Johnny anything he wanted to know, innocently set about telling him how he worked. After a few hours, Johnny had all the information he needed. By midnight, he had completely reprogrammed Pal. Johnny stood back. The computer was silent. A single light flickered reproachfully on his control panel. "Sorry, Pal," Johnny said. And then he comforted himself. After all, Pal is only a computer. He has no real feelings to hurt. Johnny slipped into his spacesuit. "Open the doors, Pal," he commanded. Pal instantly obeyed his new master. Taking his father's space buggy, Johnny set out on a journey of discovery. Utopium was small. From his house, Johnny could only see a mile or so in each direction before the horizon dipped away. A few minutes' drive took Johnny out of view of the house and into unknown territory. How still it is. How silent. How lonely, thought Johnny. A shiver of excitement ran down his spine. It was difficult to judge distances with no familiar landmarks to go by. The starlight played tricks on his eyes. Distant mountains looked as close as nearby rocks. "Now keep steady and watch out," Johnny told himself, straining ahead into the darkness. Suddenly a boulder, which had seemed a long way off, loomed up in front of him. He swerved to avoid it. The buggy jolted forward and started to fall down, 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 down. "I'm in an anti-gravity tunnel," Johnny realized, trying not to panic. "Sooner or later, it will lead me back to the surface. But where?" He could feel the pull on the buggy as it was caught in a strong anti-gravity current. The speedometer registered 100, 200, 300 miles an hour. The buggy seemed to have a mind of its own. At one moment, it would head straight for a blank wall and suddenly swerve aside and bolt down yet another tunnel. Johnny was drawn helplessly on around the central core of Utopium and beyond. He ceased to care where he was going as he enjoyed the sensation of effortless speed. Then, without warning, the buggy was flung out onto the surface again. It came to a halt in brilliant sunshine. Johnny climbed out, rubbing his eyes. "It's daytime," he said to himself. "I must have arrived on the other side of Utopium." He was inside a giant air dome. It was more than 50 miles across and filled with mountains carved into incredible shapes. Not far off, he saw a man on a hover buggy hard at work with a laser tool. As the laser beam struck the mountain, great hunks of rock split away with thunderous crashes. Johnny drove his buggy over to the man. "What are you doing?" he shouted. "I'm carving the mountains," the man replied. "What for?" Johnny asked. The man brought his hover buggy to rest beside Johnny. "We're going to turn Utopium into the most fantastic planet in the universe," he explained. "In 10 years' time, every inch of it will be landscaped like this. The lower hills will be turned into anti-gravity ski slopes. Higher up, we'll carve giant speedways for mounted buggy races. Whole air domes will be filled with sound so that people can hear music while they enjoy themselves. Utopium will be a giant pleasure park. You're lucky. Children on Earth would give anything to live here." "Do you really think so?" Johnny asked. "Go and ask them," replied the artist, and with a friendly wave he returned to his work. If only I could go to Earth, thought Johnny, as he drove off and plunged once more into the darkness of an anti-gravity tunnel. It was not long before Johnny shot out into another air dome. He could hardly believe his eyes. Animals of strange shapes and colours crowded round the buggy. He climbed out. Surely pigs aren't supposed to be as big as that, Johnny thought. He stroked the soft muzzle of a 2-headed cow. There were sheep with wool so thick they could hardly stand beneath the weight of it. A huge gorilla ambled past him, walking on its hind legs. "What do you think of my animals?" The voice startled Johnny. A man was watching him from a bench laden with scientific instruments. "Well, they're different from Earth animals," Johnny said. One of his favourite lessons with Pal had been Earth zoology. "They're better," said the man proudly. "I made them." "How?"
Johnny asked. Well, I take the best genes from different animals, I mix them together and put them in an incubator. Then out comes a new improved animal. My cows produce 4 times as much milk as an earth cow. My gorillas are intelligent enough to do many manual jobs a man would normally do. You haven't got an animal that can talk and play games, have you? Asked Johnny hopefully. No, it'll be some years before I've developed the apes to the stage of speech, I'm afraid, replied the man. Well, I don't think I can wait that long, Johnny said thoughtfully. He climbed back into the buggy and accelerated away into the anti-gravity tunnel. Underground once again, Johnny let the buggy drift through the maze of tunnels. Suddenly, it started to surge forward as if someone else had taken control of it. He was swept into a vast underground highway. The buggy hurtled down towards a gateway which bore the words Utopium Control Center, top secret. The gate swung open and the buggy came to a halt inside. Someone leant down and helped Johnny out. Hello, Johnny, he said. I'm Professor Sappho. Our systems reported that your computer had malfunctioned. I've been expecting you. But how did you know? Johnny started to ask. I'm made, pal. I control it. You'll be glad to hear that PAL has been restored to working order. You may return home now. But I don't want to go home, Johnny protested. I want to go to Earth. Earth? Exclaimed Professor Sappho. Why in space would you want to go to Earth? Haven't you got everything you want here? Perhaps you don't realize how lucky you are, Johnny. Your education is far in advance of an Earth child's. You're the first person to be born on Utopium, the first of a new race of human beings who will grow up to inherit the universe. Soon you'll look upon Earth people as we look upon the apes, as a lower form of life. Well, that's just it, cried Johnny. I want to be an ordinary boy. I want to meet real Earth people, make friends. The professor's expression changed. Something in his eyes frightened Johnny. Come here, child. I'm going to return you to your home. He made a grab for Johnny, but he was not quick enough. Johnny leapt into the buggy. Before Professor Sappho could operate the gates, he'd escaped back into the anti-gravity tunnel. Johnny knew the space base was situated near the north pole of the planet. He switched the buggy onto a northern course and set it at full speed. After a journey that seemed to take hours, the welcome neon sign flashed up before him. Utopium Space Base. A thrill of excitement ran through Johnny as he caught his first glimpse of the waiting space shuttles. He was eagerly making his way to the viewing area when he was grasped from behind. He swung round to find an astronaut dressed in a gleaming spacesuit smiling down at him. Johnny had only one thought in his head. I want to go to Earth, he said simply. There are plenty of omnisensors that can give you a perfect simulation, replied the astronaut. No, I really want to go there, Johnny repeated. Suddenly he felt as if he would choke if he didn't get someone to understand. All in a rush, he told the astronaut about his life. How he had never met anyone his own age, never done any of the things ordinary boys were allowed to do. The astronaut looked serious. You're Johnny, aren't you? I've heard about you. My name's Astrum. He held out his hand. Johnny shook it silently. Now look, Johnny, Astrum said. I'm not meant to do this, but I'm going on a 2-day supply trip to Earth. If you promise to do exactly as I say, I'll take you with me. Earth, thought Johnny. His greatest dream was about to come true. The 5-hour journey seemed to pass in a flash. The gravity on Utopium was so light that Johnny felt practically no pressure on takeoff. He'd been excited and a little nervous at the thought of making the time-space jump as they passed through the black hole slipway. But when it happened, apart from some rapid adjustments on the control dials, he would never have known it had taken place. Now, in Earth space-time, they were fast approaching the brightly sunlit planet. Johnny could not take his eyes from the visiplate. The colors were dazzling. From the pale gold aurora on the horizon, soft banks of lilac cloud gave way to vivid green and terracotta land masses separated by deep blue oceans. After the bleak landscape of Utopium, Earth appeared to be seething with life. Johnny felt himself plunging faster and faster towards the planet. Just as it seemed as if they must dive straight through the surface, he felt the braking force of the decelerating engines. Astrid was talking to ground control. His voice sounded reassuringly calm. The pressure of deceleration became almost unbearable. Johnny closed his eyes. Then, all of a sudden, there was a gentle bump. The space shuttle's engines died down. Astrid turned to Johnny and said, "Welcome to Earth.